That's as good a place to start as any. It's May 1st, 2020, everyone. Rabbit, and welcome to Mind the Moment. This, our coffee house in the cloud, is a place to build community, get centered, feel connected, and flex the muscles of gratitude. And May Day is a great day to feel gratitude, especially by uniting with the workers of the world in appreciation of their labor. And that reaching out in appreciation, I think, takes on a special significance this year when so many workers are placing themselves in harm's way to ensure the world as we've known it keeps turning, either by bravely continuing to do the work they do, like our first responders and delivery drivers, or by bravely allowing their work to be placed on pause, like so many restaurant workers, barbers, and department store employees. My name is John Roberts from Harvard Pilgrim Health Care's Mindfulness program, and I'm minding the moment this morning with Tara Healey, founder and director of that very program. Good morning, Tara.
Good morning, John. Hello, everyone.
Tara, who are you feeling appreciation for this morning?
Well, I am feeling appreciation for my niece, who happens to be doing a bit of quarantine time with me before she goes home to her house in Connecticut. She's helping me cook and clean, and we take runs together, and it's been a lot of fun having her. So I very much appreciate that.
Oh, that's fantastic. So in a moment, I will hand it back over to Tara to lead us in a 10-minute guided meditation, after which I will get us started in Q&A before wrapping it all up just before 9 a.m. Speaking of Q&A, you may have noticed at the bottom of your screen an option to open up a chat box. At any point, please do so. Use it to type questions or comments. Tara, is there anything you'd like to ask the folks at home to comment on as we get started?
Yeah, sure. I just want to start the way we typically do, which is just a word or two or phrase that just captures how you are feeling this morning. Like, what's going on for you this morning?
All right, great. Looks like we have just around, just under 100 people practicing with us this morning. It's great to have you all here and to feel your presence. As you type, keep in mind that only Tara and I will be able to see what you type. And if we don't read your question or comment out loud, please know that we do read and appreciate them all. And before we close, we'll point you towards some other ways to get in touch as well. All right, so a lot of stuff coming in. So here's a few. TGIF, yes, indeed. Feeling calm, sad, peaceful, two peacefuls actually, unmoored, stir crazy, looking forward to any sorts of reopenings in any small ways, hopeful, rejuvenated, lonely, stagnant, refreshed, grateful, ready to face the day. I think that's a good one to end on. So, Tara, I was wondering if you could lead us off here by maybe saying a few things about the value of consistency in practice.
Yeah, no, I'd love to, John. I think that's a good way to start. The research is pointing to the fact that a regular and consistent meditation practice is what actually increases the gray matter in the brain, in regions of the brain that are important for attention, emotion regulation, and also for mental flexibility. And I think of it much like exercise, that if we have a very regular exercise routine, that consistency is what changes the fabric of the body and improves strength and flexibility so that you can then employ that strength and flexibility in the service of your life. It's actually the same with having a very regular meditation practice. That consistency is what makes the difference. And mindfulness meditation really teaches us how to work with distressing thoughts and emotions without being overpowered by them. And I think sometimes that's what prevents us from the meditation practice, is that the challenging emotions that arise when we are sitting with ourselves without distraction. But the idea is that this practice helps us work with the distressing thoughts and emotions and not be overpowered by them and not reject or distract, which are two really common strategies that give the anxiety more power. And I think, one might think if we turn toward anxiety or difficult emotions, we might sort of amplify it. But it's in fact, the way we turn toward it is with an attitude of receptivity, curiosity and interest. But we also, we know that whatever we inclined our minds toward, we actually wind up training. So for instance, a juggler is going to have an increased gray matter in the areas in the brain responsible for anticipating the movement of parts. Cab drivers get better at spatial awareness. Musicians get better at analyzing and creating music. And meditators get better at concentration and steadying the mind. So the more that we do that, and the idea is we then employ that steadiness to help us see what's happening with receptivity, interest, and a willingness to be with what is. And when we practice this kind of calm acceptance, then we get better at that. So, I think that partly what's important to know is that when we are practicing paying attention, which is what we're doing in meditation in part, paying attention literally becomes easier for the brain, thereby allocating fewer brain resources for that activity. And it leaves you able to do more with the mental energy that you have. And that really kind of makes a lot of sense. And I think I would just sort of close by saying, remember that, you're not inviting thoughts in, that thoughts are slipping in unnoticed. And the idea is we want to simply relate to those thoughts, as we will in a minute with practice, with awareness and allowance, with willingness and compassion, to just be with what is without rejection. And mindfulness basically highlights what's on our mind so that we can see our mental habits and our patterns with greater clarity. And as a result, your life becomes more integrated and your well-being is not dependent on conditions. And so this is what we're going to be practicing today, keeping up with the consistency and regularity of practice. And a word that I would use, that I heard Dan Harris use, that I think he heard from somebody, is that daily-ish. So that, you want to pretty much practice every day or daily-ish. And it doesn't have to be, the science is also showing, doesn't have to be long, drawn-out practices, that as little as 10 minutes a day with regularity over several weeks is showing structural changes in the brain. So with that, let's go ahead and begin our morning practice. So settling into the seated position, or if you're standing, that's also fine. So either seated or standing, and allow the support beneath you to really hold you, to feel that you can surrender your weight into the floor beneath you or into the chair that you're sitting in. And noticing your spine so that you're sitting in a way that is upright, engaged, and alert, yet at the same time relaxed. So it's that holding yourself in a way that's not too loose and not too tight. I think engaged is the word that I like a lot. So it means we're active. And just take a moment to begin by noticing sound in the room that you're in or outside of the room. And begin to allow the sound to remain in the background, but begin to bring the focus into the body. And let's begin by taking a deep inhalation through the nose and a bit longer exhalation through the mouth. And just noticing how the body is, the physical expression from your activity of the day so far. So noticing pulsing or vibration, perhaps aware of points of contact with the back of the body and the surface or the bottom of the feet if you're standing. And just see what sensations the body is offering you this morning from your activity of the day. Begin now to narrow the focus of attention from whole body to the natural rhythm of your breath. However, you're breathing is fine, so you don't have to change it or make it different. Just begin to notice the inhalation, the subtle pause, the exhalation, the pause, and where in the body that sensation is most pronounced for you. So it could be the belly, abdomen, chest, nostrils, or just an overall sense of body breathing in and body breathing out. So taking a moment to notice and allow that sensation to be an anchor for the wandering mind. So, in a sense, you're tethering the mind to that anchor, tracking in, tracking the breath out. Not to be concerned with the mind wandering, it will. We're not trying to stop it. Just as soon as you notice that you're lost in memory or planning or worry or joy, just gently you can label it thinking or you can be more specific and then return attention to the breath sensation where it's most pronounced for you. And you're doing it correctly. We just follow that pattern over and over again. And just notice where the mind is. And a soft, gentle label, thinking or planning or worry or joy. So either general or specific, and then escort the attention back to the rhythm of breath in the body. And noticing where the mind is, not a problem. And gently returning attention to breath sensation. And as we bring this meditation to a close, may we be peaceful and at ease. May our heart be soft and open. May we be safe and protected, and our bodies healthy and strong. And for all of those who are known and unknown to us around the globe and related to the suffering that this pandemic has brought us, may they be peaceful and at ease. May their hearts be soft and open. May they be safe and protected, and their bodies healthy and strong. And may the merit of our practice benefit all beings everywhere. And when you feel ready, if your eyes were closed, you can allow them to open. And if they were open, we're just re-engaging. And
Thank you, Tara.
yes.
Oh, so one of the things we've been talking about lately has been uncertainty, which got me thinking about the uncertainty that new meditators often feel, that I felt when I was a new meditator, which can be complicated if one has a mindset that sees things as being just one way or the other, as my mindset has been at different points in my life. I mean, even though the city where I was raised, thanks in part to its proximity to the Mississippi River, had more geological diversions than one might imagine could possibly exist in Iowa, my upbringing was still very flat and orderly, very much of a piece with the neat grids of farmers' fields and the precise slicing of the year into quadrants. I was taught that there were right answers and there were wrong answers, and there was precious little daylight in between. It was my job to learn what the right answers were, and if I couldn't learn what the right answers were, then the topic in question probably wasn't for me. This thinking extended to cultural matters, spiritual matters, educational matters, and even extended to the body. Many of you may have had this experience. When I was in junior high, I was told the right answer for my body to give was to run a mile in 7 minutes or less. But it turned out my body had a different answer, had a very different answer. And so I considered physical exertion to be more or less a lost cause and decided instead to submerge myself in the study of the mind. And yet, when I actually encountered mindfulness practice, my first impulse was still to treat it like it was a driver's test. That there were rules of the road, and as long as you followed the rules, you'd pass the test and no one would bother you. In a driving test, it's pretty straightforward. When you get to the stop sign, you stop. But in mindfulness, it turned out to be very different. What if there is no stop sign? What if there is no road? What if there is no car? What if there is no driver? The first time I sat with a mindfulness teacher, they said, pay attention to the sensation of the breath at the tip of the nose. And I thought, great, no problem. I can do that. The second time I sat with a mindfulness teacher, they said, pay attention to the sensation of the breath in the abdomen. And I thought, that's different from what the other guy said, but okay, you look like you know what you're talking about. You're probably more right than he was. The third time I sat with a mindfulness teacher, they said, you can pay attention to the sensation of the breath at the tip of the nose or in the abdomen or anywhere else. And I thought, that is no fair. I wanted to take the guy aside and say, listen, which is it? You can tell me. It's okay. I just need to know the right way. If there's a quiz later, I need to be able to pass it. So taking in all this uncertainty, having to hold all these possibilities, and felt to me a little bit like kneading dough. Like I was constantly stuffing all this information into this gloppy wad of my mind, and it kept fighting back against me. But I stuck with it. I stuck with mindfulness because I'd seen all these mindfulness people walking around with their beautiful baked bread brains. And I thought, if that's the upshot, then I've got to get my dough in order. What I found was that if you keep kneading the dough for long enough, folding and refolding all these ideas into its mass, it actually gets more resilient and more elastic over time. The more ideas you add in, the easier it becomes to work with them and hold them all in place. And so eventually, yes, you have to slide the dough into the oven. You've got to say, okay, I'm going to pay attention to my breath in this way. I'm going to do it for this number of minutes on this cushion at this time of day. But any good loaf of bread comes out with lots of little holes in it, lots of room for airflow. And similarly, I found that the strength in my practice is this combination of, on the one hand, committing to it fully, while at the same time, not being afraid to make adjustments to fit the circumstances. The best teachers, I think, will also keep this kind of an open mind. I was struck recently when I was reading an interview with the Vietnamese monk Thich Nhat Hanh, which he gave to a Spanish newspaper in 2014. Now, Thich Nhat Hanh is 93 years old now, but at the time, he stated the following, quote, "I'm 88 years old. I'm a Zen master. At 16, I entered a monastery. I'm Vietnamese, living in France, where I founded a Buddhist community. I lead worldwide retreats on the art of conscious living. If I had to choose between Buddhism and peace, I would choose peace." Here's a man who's devoted his entire life to a particular worldview, Buddhism. And yet, if he found there might be a better way to do it, he would be that way. If he had to choose between everything he'd believed up to that point and peace, he would choose the latter. So, Tara, I wanted to ask you, if you don't mind, about these, like the misconceptions that new meditators might have. Like I had this misconception that, well, there's this right way to do it.
Right.
So when you're teaching people, and I know you're probably teaching people who are at all different stages,
Right.
you find that people are, might get a little bit wrong because of things that they've picked up along the way.
Well, I mean, I think especially with the popularity of mindfulness, first of all, I think in general with meditation and mindfulness, there's been some historical cultural baggage that has not been correct, that we sit all peaceful, and mostly what happens when people sit in meditation for the first time is they feel anything but peaceful. And the idea is actually that's okay. That's what most people feel, is some degree of discomfort or anxiety or whatever. And the idea is that, can I just get curious and interested and allow these uncomfortable sensations? And there's a couple things going on here too, is that one is that coming back to an object, whether, as John says, and we've both been practicing for a lot of years and working with many, many teachers, and they'll say different things. So the way where I land on this is that that it doesn't really matter what you choose to pay attention to. What matters is the quality of awareness and attention you can bring to the thing you're using to serve as your anchor. And but avoiding things like visualization, that's just a different practice. It's a good practice. There's nothing wrong with it, but that's not mindfulness meditation. You really want to find an anchor. It could be your hands touching together, your thighs. It could be the points of contact with the body and the surface you're on. Could be breath, but not everybody connects with breath right away. And there are some days where breath doesn't work as well for me. So I might open to sound. And then each time my mind wanders, which it will a lot, I gently bring back to that openness of receiving sound. So the idea is we steady attention through that activity, and then we employ the steadiness in the service of seeing clearly. It's how mindfulness does its job best on a steady platform.
I think it's so important that you mentioned that, your own mind will wander, because I think probably a lot of people might, look at you and the number of years you've been teaching and practicing and
Yeah,
think, well, so, I mean, of course, her mind doesn't wander anymore. My
it
mind
does.
might, but her mind doesn't. But yes,
It does. Yes.
it's like every time, it's like the first time with the meditation. And
The one difference I would say for over time is that I have become so familiar with thought patterns that they have less power now. It's like, oh, here you are. I know you. So they've lost some power. The thoughts still come in, whether they're distressing or whatever, but I know that they're of a nature to change. So I'm less triggered by them. And that's a huge benefit of practice.
yes, like, when I was a teenager and you used to have to sneak into my house after curfew, and it was dark. Eventually, you learn how to move through the dark. You learn how to get the key in the door. You learn how to get back up to your bedroom. But the first time you do it, you might trip over a few chairs.
Right.
So I have to ask Tara. So you have your niece with you right now, and
Yes.
I know she is in the meditation biz herself.
Yes.
And I'm curious, do you find like somebody of her generation, I mean, somebody of my generation, somebody of your generation, I mean, we had some certain misconceptions or conceptions about mindfulness practice. Do you find that she has, do you think that she's more comfortable with mindfulness than perhaps you or I were when we first encountered it?
I think so, because it's far more mainstream and popular. So I think that I mean, she's 23. And she's already sat a retreat in the Insight Meditation Society. She's in Barrie. She's done some retreats with IB Me, Jess Morey, who was a guest on this show, and she's done retreats at Shambhala. So like it's a more, I wish at her age that I had done it because I was interested. So I feel like there's more acceptance. So yeah.
Is there anything that you find that you're learning from her as a young meditator, or as a young practitioner of mindfulness practices?
Yeah, well, I'm inspired by her courage. I'm inspired by her willingness to follow this passion. That quite honestly, like I always say to my sister, like I never talked to her about this in terms of, oh, this is something you should do ever. And I'm really just kind of inspired by her own initiative, and that she has done some of the retreat work, which is pretty hard. And and I think she has a pretty chill view of life. I mean, she's motivated, but like she's also pretty chill. So yeah.
I think I'm glad to hear that the rising generation might be a little more chill than at least mine was. Tara, so we do need to wrap up, but as we're ending, is there anything that you'd like to check in with folks about before we close out?
I guess I would say, is there anything that made you smile today? Did anything happen this morning or even throughout the practice today that just brought a smile to your face? I'd love to hear that.
Okay, so as folks are chiming in about that, let me just remind everyone that we are back here every Tuesday and Friday at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. You can find the links to these sessions and other resources at our main site at harvardpilgrim.org/mindfulness. Please do drop us a line at askmtm@harvardpilgrim.org, or leave a comment on our Facebook page. Our goal here is not only to practice together, but also to learn from each other. Let us know what's on your mind. What have you been liking about these sessions? What could we be doing better? What's making you smile? You can also leave us a voicemail at my desk number, which is 617-509-7047. You can rewatch this session and older sessions on our YouTube page, and find additional guided meditations on our SoundCloud page. All right, let's see what we got here. Listening to Tara makes me smile. Very good. Somebody just finished a 30-day yoga challenge today. Congratulations.
Nice.
My dog meditated next to me this morning. Love to hear that. That's wonderful stuff. If folks want to comment on our Facebook page about additional things, we'd love to hear about that as well. Tara Healey, thank you for your teaching this morning.
Thank
Thanks
you.
to everyone for joining. We
Yeah,
hope to
thank
see
you
again
so much
very-
for joining.
All right, everyone, I hope you have a momentous day. See you soon.